In an interview with GameIndustry.biz, Ubisoft Director of Subscriptions Philippe Tremblay said that players should not get used to owning their games. Come to think of it, do we really own our games now? How many of you are playing on subscription services like Xbox Game Pass or PS Plus? Hello everyone, I am Cheese Pizza. I am a game designer and my goal is to make video games a mainstream entertainment medium. And today we are going to talk about games as product versus games as service. Let's go back in time and first understand the concept of service and product and understand the difference between them. A product is something that is offered for sale and is transferred between one individual to another by ownership. A product can vary from being a tangible object or a perk or a bond. Only that the product is once transferred to other individual will be the owner of it. An example for it can be your car or even the game you bought in GameStop in a physical form. On the other hand, a service is something that is provided as a perk from one person to another in exchange of another perk such as money in most cases. The difference between service and product is that services are not tangible and are not owned by the buyer when purchased, but is a recurring expense. A good example for a service is your barber or your garage mechanic, which offers useful services but is not tangible like buying a car or a software. Video games first started as a thing in form of arcade machines, as it was not affordable for anyone to buy them for personal use, as well as the technology was not that advanced. Arcade machines were presented to users in various outlets like malls, shopping complexes as a service, where the player has to rent the game machine for an X amount of time or turns. In 1972, Sanders Associates developed the first ever home console, which was launched as Magnavox Odyssey, which had Pong in it. This console was not really a hit because there was no market requirement at that time, as well as no real recognition for video games. Video games started becoming popular with the release of Nintendo Entertainment System, released in 1983, which was very popular and well received in Japan, Europe and America. We have come a long way since then. Games transitioned from a service to a product and are now again transitioning back to becoming services such as Ubisoft Plus. RuneScape was the first game to launch a freemium type of monetization model, where players were given additional perks upon starting a premium membership by paying a fixed recurring cost. RuneScape is an MMORPG, that is, massively multiplayer online role-playing game. Whereas the name suggests, players integrate with each other and generate a lot of UGC. UGC is user-generated content. That's when the full potential of UGC was recognized and methods were created to cultivate it towards profits. RuneScape favored players over pairs by giving them competitive advantage over others by providing skills over cosmetics. Before RuneScape, people had to buy physical copies of the games in the form of cassettes or compact drives, which from the publisher end of was a hassle to ship, maintain inventories and more. Online service-based games solved that issue altogether, where the developer only had to maintain a server to reach the players directly, omitting all the potential cost cuts in packaging, shipping, retailing, etc. Service games gives players free updates and fixes as they go, minimizing any broken features and bugs as compared to the physical copies of discs being hard to give updates. Now in this decade, even buying physical copies of games have become irrelevant and obsolete. Only consoles sell their games as physical copies, which most of the time contains a game code that gives you access to the game and you have to download the game yourself. Many free-to-play companies now earn money from microtransactions like loot boxes, battle passes, ad integrations and more. Developers are becoming more and more creative towards monetization methods in games. Recently, SCS Software, the developers behind Euro Truck Simulator, added billboard advertisements inside the game to promote the company for recruiting truck drivers. Even during presidential campaign for former US President Barack Obama in 2008, in-game advertisements were placed in many games including Burnout in the US. Fortnite has added limited time events in their game including full-blown concerts of many popular pop stars along with multiple game modes and challenges. Monetization techniques are getting more and more creative over time, especially in games such as services. Before live service was popular, game companies used to rely on upfront and one-time payment from the user. Due to this, companies had to either list their games on high prices or reduce the development cost in their side. Reducing the development cost, not always, but most times meant that overworking their employees, like making them do a long crunch, increasing work hours, giving impossible targets to achieve, and sometimes not even paying them for the extra work. Thus, the companies ethical about their policies made their game prices higher, and that's how the prices got inflated over time. But there is another side to the story. In recent times, studios have started listing their games on stores for one-time purchase as well as on subscriptions to give as live service. These studios list their price so high up on stores that it feels like an obvious choice to go for subscription services to play that game for a very low price. But the story doesn't end here. Let's see how you can identify premium games that are actually made to be subscription based games. Upper side price listing. These games are mostly listed on the higher side of the average pricing spectrum to promote users going to the subscription based counterpart of the game, while also capturing the users that prefer the store bought version than a subscription one, emphasizing more on gameplay hours than quality. These games often market themselves by providing a lot of hours to finish the game, while they lack the quality as such. Most of these games are either multiplayer, making the game endless, or in case of story-based games, succeed the mark of 120 hours and plus. In-app purchases. Games similar to these often have in-app purchases which let users buy some cosmetics or similar stuff for an additional prices. Note that IPs are different than DLCs. Live events. While it's okay to introduce live events into multiplayer as well as free-to-play games to increase engagement and promote monetization, studios have started to push it much further and have started including live and limited time events into premium games. Limited time events directly help these games improve retention of users and increases the session time, which when considered from a subscription platform is favored, because the more user plays the game, the longer they have to keep subscribed to the service. Restricted features. Many subscription based games have restricted the use of some features that are only unlocked in the full version of the game. A good example of this would be Palworld, which restricted the Xbox Pass users from creating a multiplayer server. Restricting some features in the subscription part of the game is rather rude and bad move. Points like these and more can easily be identified, and then you know if the game you just bought with a huge sum of money is rather meant to be a subscription based game. Live service games are slowly becoming distasteful. Many video game enjoyers have started to notice the patterns these game offers, and over time live service games are automatically considered boring, endless, cash grabbing. Why do many of the live service games lack quality? This is the question that is rather easy to answer if you have tried them for even an hour. As I mentioned before, live service games focus more on the playtime than quality. Increasing playtime means simply making the game grind based rather than discovery based. A good example of that could be any RPG based Assassin's Creed. To progress further, player has to complete some repetitive missions in order to gain experience and increase the stats. While this element is completely normal and needed in RPG genre, Ubisoft overdoes it in most of their games. Their game design is repeated for a very long time. Far Cry 5, Ghost Recon series, Assassin's Creed Valhalla has almost the same type of open world events where players either have to clear a bunch of enemies in a base or intercept a convoy, free some random civilian from enemies and so on. Missions like these are okay, but in certain limit. Not giving any new content across the open world discourages the player to explore the map. Take Elden Ring for example. There are ample amount of items, secret, bosses hidden all around the map, and FromSoft keeps it hidden from the player, eventually making exploration very much interesting and rewarding. The main goal in an open world should not be the biggest world possible, but to make a world worth exploring. Games like these also introduce extra missions updated over time as a live service, which give out some kind of currency that can be exchanged for cosmetics from the same store. And the same currency can also be bought with real money. Doing this increases the retention from the players as they are promoted to keep playing the game even after they finish the main story. Are games with very high gameplay hours bad? Seeing the pattern with these games, one might think that a game with a lot of content can have high percentage of being bad, but that is not the case. When you compare 120 hours of Valhalla versus 120 hours of Baldur's Gate 3, you can clearly see the difference. The difference between innovation in mechanics, variety of content, the pacing of the story, and much more. But there are still a lot of service games that don't come too strong and provide a balance between monetization and gameplay. First example is Valorant. I am aware many of you will immediately think about its toxic lobbies, tryhard players, but let's ignore that bit for a moment. The monetization in Valorant is kept separate from the core game loop, and player is not forced to put in money with strong cornering methods. Riot Games, instead of putting gachas in the game, creates rarity in the cosmetics by simply making the materials not show up in the shop, basically making the bridge between players and pairs as less as possible. Valorant's Battle Pass system is also merciful, where you have given plenty of time to complete the objectives and earn rewards in premium tiers as well as free tiers. Most games make the battle passes as a huge core where players are promoted every day to maximize earning the XP towards battle pass completion. Next good example is Sea of Thieves, published by Xbox Games. This one is available to buy as one-time purchase as well as is available on the Game Pass by Xbox. Similar to Valorant, the monetization is kept isolated from the core loop of the game. In case of Valorant, the cosmetics were only available when purchased. Sea of Thieves lets players choose between playing and earning a limited cosmetic or buy them with real money. The most amazing thing about SOT is that everyone starts at the same stats irrespective of them being a beginner or a long-term player. The only difference is whether you have skins for your cannon or not. In the end, we should always keep in mind that any game published out there took a lot of time and work for everyone involved in it. Designers, artists, programmers, testers, and many more people are involved behind the game and should be acknowledged as well as respected for it. No game or game developer is bad. It's the people who profit off that are in the fault. Thank you for sticking with me till the end. If you like the content I deliver, consider subscribing and turning the notification on. I wish you all a great day ahead. Bye bye.